On January 10th, 1880, faithful Tom Folliard visited from wherever, and since he'd been alone for weeks, he was in the mood for a rollick and soon grew tired of the smallness and innkeeper calm at Beaver Smith's, harassing the kid to find him some action and sporting ladies in Bob Hargrove's saloon. Walking across the parade grounds in front of the Maxwell house and in a hunker from the sleeping cold, the kid was called to by Jim Chisholm, Uncle John's younger brother, who'd been in conversation with Pete Maxwell on the front porch. Pete offered a friendly wave and went back inside the former officers' quarters as Jim and one of his hands, a Jack Finan, hurried through the gate of the picket fence to interrogate them. Jim told the kid and Tom that he'd been retrieving stolen cattle in Canyon Cueva near the village of Juan de Dios. Would the kid know anything about that? The kid said he didn't. Jim and Jack squinted their eyes at him. I'll grant you I have rustled from time to time, but not in this particular instance. Jack Finan said, Pete says you probably did. Pete says a lot of things, and he lies like a no-legged dog. Tom was hugging himself as he asked, How long we going to stand out here? I'm frozen. The kid asked, Would you galoots like to join us in Hargrove's, just to let bygones be bygones? I'm buying. Jim Chisholm dithered a little, but Jack Finan scoured the kid with his glower. The kid chose to take note of Jack's gun, an ivory-handled Colt single-action Army revolver that shone like new chrome. You got a handsome hog leg in that scabbard. Cost me plenty, Jack said, his face hinting at a readiness to smile. Could I heft it? Jack was tentative as he handed it to him. The kid felt its weight, tested its balance, spun it on his trigger finger, and looked down the barrel at the front sight as he aimed at a sheet of newspaper flying on the wind. Go ahead and try it, Jack said. The kid shot, and the sheet of newspaper swatted. Wow, he said, just to be charming. He fired again with his left hand, and the first bullet hole got larger. His third shot from hip high was elsewhere on the page. Enviable piece, the kid said. And because they were heading into a public place, he half-turned the cylinder so that the hammer was on the first spent shell and couldn't misfire. Jack took the pistol back with satisfied pride. Even in mid-afternoon there was the noise of someone cranking organ music from a hurdy-gurdy, the hee-haws of drunken laughter at the long bar, and 4 flirting daughters of joy in frilly full-length white dresses inveigling fallen men. Red-haired Tom went to one who was no prettier than the others and confided a few sentences. She tugged him by the hand into the stalls in back. The kid bought pints of Anheuser-Busch for Chisholm and Finan and got a porcelain cup of coffee for himself. And then he heard a drunk yell, Are you Bunny? I's here a-looking for Kid Bunny. The kid leaned toward the mixologist. You know who that is? Says he's Joe Grant. Says they call him Texas Red. Stewed? Half a quart of our rot gut so far. The kid waved his hand and called, Kid Bunny, over here. Jim Chisholm whispered, You need help, just say so. Widening his winter coat to give freedom to his six-shooter, the kid said, I'll deal with it. Joe Grant was zigzagging over to him, skidding off the backs of drinkers and swinging his forearm at the vexation or bumping chairs into screeching changes of position. His hand gripped the bar to hold himself upright. He was fat and hatless, and the fringe of auburn beard at his jaw so matched the fringe on his skull that the kid thought his chapped, round face would look pretty much the same upside down. So, you Bunny? William H. Bunny. We got a score to settle. Why don't I buy you a shot or two of fire starter and you can tell me all about it? Had enough for now." Weaving and seeming about to fall, Joe Grant's unfocused glances around himself fell on Jack Finan's fancy .45. "Let me see that gun." The kid nodded in permission, and Jack handed it over. Grant admired it for a second, then asked, "What was I saying?" "Shetling something?" the kid said. Here, Grant said to Finan. "My gun while I'm looking." Exchanging weapons, he shoved his own pistol into Jack's holster. Then he lewdly licked the shining barrel and ivory handle of the Colt with his own pitiful impression of rapier wit. "She's so purty." "So," the kid patiently said, "what's your plan?" His face hardened. "I'm gonna kill you afore you do." A reverent, church-like silence took over as hard-bitten cowhands and gunmen in the saloon edged away from the forecast's confrontation, not wanting to get anything on them. The kid chose to be pacifying. "Oh, what do you want to kill anybody for, Joe? Give Jack his pistol and let's solve the world's problems with whiskey." Joe Grant was shaking his head from side to side. "Nope, mine's made up." But then he tilted a little as he uncertainly focused on Jim Chisholm. "You, Uncle John, have to kill Chisholm first." His halitosis could frazzle houseplants. Jim and Jack's hands were easing down to their holsters as the kid lifted his hand in the halt sign. "Hold on, Joe. You got the wrong sow by the ear. This is Jim Chisholm, Uncle John's brother, and he done nothing to you." "Well, I got this shiny gun, and she's all go." "Shall I show you to the door? Walk with me outside." The kid strolled from Joe Grant's fuddled menace toward the saloon doors, the ever-so-quiet crowd dividing for him as he heard Jim Chisholm call out, "Kid!" and then heard the click as the hammer cocked and snapped onto an empty chamber. The kid hesitated and heard another snap as, in frustration, Joe Grant tried to kill him again. And then the kid ducked and twisted around in a crouch, and in a sudden rage and viciousness fired his own Colt 3 times. Bang, bang, bang! Each shot hitting Joe Grant in the chin in a gruesome destruction that was the size of a fist. Grant was dead so quick there was no chance for reaction or even for pain. He fell against the footrail of the bar, and his body sagged gradually to the floor, blood eddying from him. The kid considered his victim and said, "Sorry, Joe, but I've been there too often." Recalling Windy Cahill and Arizona, he looked around through the acrid gray haze of gun smoke. The saloon customers were still holding their ears from the noise and cautiously inching away, like this was finally the frightening kid they'd heard so much about. "You saw what happened, right? It was self-defense." "He was spoiling for it," a far-off man yelled out. Another man agreed. "You had yourself no option in the matter." Jack Finan bent down to extract his ivory-handled .45 from the corpse's surprisingly firm grip. "We'll clean all this up," the bartender said, "but you better go, kid." Tom Folliard had heard the shots and was running into the main room, his face full of horror as he buttoned up his trousers. "What'd I miss?" With the jazzy exhilaration he always felt when he found himself still alive, the kid told him, "Oh, nothing. It was a game of 2, and I got there first."